What's going on and what's happening? This is the College Football Show on Twitter, YouTube Live, and the ESPN app. I am Treavor Scales here with you each and every week, and joining me this week, week 4 of college football, is Bobby Carpenter. We appreciate you joining us, big dog.
Trevor, my pleasure, man.
And appreciate it. As we come on air, we are watching quite a few things because our job is to take you through everything that happened in college football in past, present, and future. So we'll get you prepped for tonight's nightcast, but right now we have our eye on UCF and Pitt going right down to the wire. But we can talk a little football before we get into any of the current discussions going on, and that begins with Michigan. And when we were sitting in our pre-show meeting, Bobby, I expected you to come in looking alive, all kinds of happy, being the former Buckeye linebacker that you are with Michigan's result today, but you were a little bit subdued, I'd say.
Yeah, subdued is one word. It was disappointed, really, when you think about it. I thought this Michigan team was going to be ready to go and fired up coming in, and you want to see them. The Big Ten is better when Michigan is playing well, and you watch Wisconsin right here, they hammered in early, and then Michigan gets a shot to get down there and score, and they fumbled the opening possession of their last 3 games, Trevor. It's unbelievable. And then you watch Jonathan Taylor do what Jonathan Taylor does.
And that's exactly right. He continues his Heisman campaign. It's something to behold. We'll chat with him actually a little bit later. But he goes off in the first half for 145 yards, goes for 20 carries, 203 on the day, a pair of touchdowns. You see him there. And this was one of them moments when we were watching this, and it's just inexcusable. It kind of just displays what's going on with this Michigan Wolverines team, and it ain't positive.
No, and all 3 of the touchdowns are rushing in the first half, and here's the last one with Cone scrambling in. You watch him, you're figuring out where are all the defenders? Where are they closing in? Cone probably runs a 5-2. It's not like he's Michael Vick out there, Lamar Jackson.
He's not catching anybody off guard, so why exactly you aren't able to account for him, even if it's not devoting a spot to him? Nobody's saying you have to do all that, but you have to be able to keep an eye on him in effect and kind of shut all that down. He shouldn't be able to just run rampant all over you.
No, he shouldn't, and it was disappointing today, and like you said, the first touchdown with Jonathan Taylor, blown assignment. There's no reason why he should go 70-plus yards untouched. Then you have the sneak where there's an open gap right on the goal line. And then the last one with Cone scrambling, and everybody's playing man. No one can find the quarterback. And I cannot believe that Michigan doesn't have the athletes and speed in the back end to close it down and at least tackle him before he crosses the goal line.
35-14, the Badgers get the big-time win there in a game that a lot of people expected to be a lot closer. And even that score, 35-14, isn't quite indicative of the dominant performance that Wisconsin had on today. So that's just one of the many things going on. And, again, I kind of want to go back to your empathy for this Michigan team. Where exactly is it coming? Why do you want them to be good?
Because I love college football, and I love it when the traditional powers are good. I was happy the USC won, which I know we're going to get into. I'm excited to see that. I like it when Michigan's good. I like to see an Ohio State-Michigan game at the end of the season that's of consequence, more than just for the rivalry and, the pageantry going back and forth, but the fact that, hey, both of these teams have national title implications. You have 2 legitimate, head coaches, maybe a Heisman Trophy candidate, and they're like, that's what makes the sport great. And to watch this today, and this was supposed to be the year, a lot of the pundits were picking Michigan, and I just cautioned everybody, I haven't really seen a difference from what they've done outside of maybe bringing in Josh Gaddis, and I don't know if that experiment with Shea Patterson has really worked the way that they have hoped.
Combine that with the fact that they lost 2 veteran running backs, right? Like, they just had a lot of things that didn't necessarily change in a positive manner that would have given you the optimism that a lot of people had. It was kind of, I was taken aback by a lot of it. Something else I've been taken aback by is Joe Burrow this season for LSU. He showed out against Vanderbilt in a way that a lot of people could not have seen. At least I didn't see it. I won't put that on everybody else. But he went off for a school record, 6 touchdowns, 394 yards through the air, and we apparently found out his favorite receiver. That would be Jamar Chase. He had 10 receptions on the day, quite a few of them going the distance. But again, Joe Burrow and this offense continues to just expand the expectations as far as what they can do down the line of this season.
It's been really impressive what Joe Burrow's done, and you look at the athletes that they've always had at LSU, the number of receivers they have in the NFL, the number of running backs they have in the NFL, and all they really needed was the trigger man. They get Joe Burrow to transfer in from Ohio State. Some people are wondering, okay, he couldn't win the starting job. How good is he? Well, he lost to Dwayne Haskins, ended up being the number 1 overall pick. He goes down there, earns the confidence. And now he has this elite group of receivers, and you see him right there looking around like he's a guy that has the low-key swag.
Yes.
He's not going to be super vocal, but he's going to do the little subtle things, and I know those receivers love it. Chase They've been chasing him all over the field today, and Joe Burrow's eating it up. 6 touchdowns, unreal.
Yeah, so I want to kind of talk about his moxie on the field, right? Like that, I am a fan of it, right? We had Elle Duncan on a couple weeks ago. She wasn't necessarily feeling the vibe. But when you say a guy that can step in from your parts, like from Ohio, right, and goes down to LSU and really commands the locker room, what does that tell you about just how he carries the locker room?
Well, he's a guy that works hard. In any place you've ever been, guys value work.
For sure.
They're going to respect work. They're going to respect production. Joe came in. He didn't expect, I don't think, to be the man. He wasn't going to be entitled to be the man. Hey, I'm going to earn this job from you. You're going to trust me, and I'm going to take that trust. I'm going to go do it on the field. And if you watch him earlier this year, he was getting hit in the face. You remember the bowl game last year? Getting his helmet knocked off, bloody chin. What's he do? Pulls it back down, straps it back up, and continues to play. And so guys look at him, hey, this dude's one of us. He's not the pretty quarterback that cries about everything and just 47 wristbands. Like, he's one of the guys.
No doubt.
He works hard, and then he goes and produces, and they have to be excited because this is the guy that gives them a chance, Trevor, to compete and possibly beat Alabama.
Like you said, man, that LSU teams in general have always just been void of that one position, that quarterback that can make that thing go, knowing how many athletes that they have on the field, not to mention the defensive prowess that they've always displayed year in and year out as an LSU Tiger program. We also need to check on the spelling. Joe needs to be changed to E-A-U-X, and the last name to Burrow, B-U-R-R-E-A-U-X. We just want to make sure we get that adjusted on the roster and for everybody involved. So, Marissa, I'm going to ask you what we got next. We'll see it on the graphic. There it is, Alabama taking on Southern Miss. And this is just another display of Tua Tagovailoa and Henry Ruggs III and Jerry Jeudy just kind of doing people in on a week-to-week basis.
You know, Nick Saban's going to complain that they play all these noon games where you're taking Southern Miss behind the woodshed, you're scoring at will. You know, whether it's Jeudy, one of the other receivers, apparently they have 4 guys that could potentially be first-round draft picks when the time comes. And if you're going to give Tua time, this is what it's going to look like. And it's going to look like this each and every week until they play the likes of a Georgia, until they play the likes of an LSU. They're so talented up front, and if they can keep Tua clean, the one issue he's always had is the injuries. But if you give him a clean pocket, there's very little that left-hander can't do.
That Southern Miss head coach was saying he just doesn't make a bad throw, and it's evidenced by every single clip that we see from this brother. Henry Ruggs goes for 3 receptions, 131 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's a first quarter stat line. That is 1 quarter of football. Alabama goes on the roll in that one, and it just continues. Like you said, the display of dominance that Alabama will continue to have until they face somebody that's actually going to challenge them. And we're looking at the likes of LSU, like you mentioned, and then whomever comes across from the East in the SEC for the championship game.
Let's be realistic, too. Watching those highlights, you or I could have completed some of those passes. I mean, those wide receivers, they're creating a lot of space. He's accurate. When you're playing a team like Southern Miss, anybody, Nick Saban could go out there and put up a decent stat line.
That's fair. But there is also something to making people look bad. I'm not saying that Southern Miss needed any help. Anyway, we will move on into the next highlight of the day. We're continuing to talk football on the College Football Show here on Twitter, YouTube Live, and the ESPN app. Next up, UCF Pitt. This one is actually still going on. We got about 4:30 left in the game, but this was just one of those knockdown, drag-out fights with a UCF team that's really looking to establish themselves in the national picture, but they're running up into some trouble with Pitt getting up on them early.
Now, they beat Stanford to start the season. They had it rolling. All of a sudden, they go up to Pitt. They find themselves in a big-time hole. Second half, they get it going a little bit more, put some touchdowns on the board, a little bit of confusion there with a very concerted and consistent Pitt defense. You usually don't see this. And then this is some of the athletes taking over for UCF, trying to be able to put them in space, making the big plays. Pitt getting worn down in the second half. And now we have a ball game.
This team speed, that's one thing that is evident with this UCF team. And as it stands right now, we got about 3 and change left. UCF up by 6. Pitt with the ball at about the minus 38-yard line, trying to make something happen as they continue to drive down the field. Down 6. They're trying to roll back and get a big-time win over a UCF team, potentially knock them out of the conversation, because it feels like the Knights really need to just go undefeated in order to ever be inserted into that national conversation.
Well, they have to go undefeated, and they have to get a lot of help. So
you're right.
The help that they would need is Stanford to win the Pac-12, or at least be in the Pac-12 championship game, which doesn't now look like it's going to happen after they were beat up by USC. And then also, Pitt to be in the ACC conversation. Maybe they could potentially get there and play Clemson in the final, but even if they did get there, I think we all know what that result would look like. But the teams they need to beat need to be really good teams, and that's going to be tough because I don't blame ADs for not wanting to schedule UCF.
Why would
because
you?
if you beat them, does it really help you all that much?
Not at all.
But if you lose to them, it's a black eye on your schedule.
That's exactly right. It's the risk-reward concept that really does play into how you schedule as a head coach, as an AD, when it comes down to looking down the line. As we're wrapping things up of that 3:30 slate here on the College Football Show, Week 4 kind of coming to a close. Auburn and Texas A&M has come to a final, 28-20. Auburn gets the win there. Bo Nix, another big-time win, and this time his first true road test, right? Remember, when they were playing Oregon, it was a neutral site. They were out in Arlington, so this is his first true road test out at Kyle Field. Gets a big-time win and an efficient day for him.
It's an efficient day, 12 for 20, 100 yards, 1 touchdown. Like, not a huge stat line, but in that Gus Malzahn offense, he doesn't necessarily have to do that. He just has to manage the game, not turn it over. They're going to run the football, rely on that terrific defense that they have. Derek Brown, so efficient up front.
Absolutely.
Big Cat Jones. I mean, you got guys wearing single digits on the defensive line.
See,
they're wrecking guys in the backfield.
No, you need to be a real one if you're going to rock a single digit on anywhere in the interior. So I have to give love to both Big Cat and, yes, Derek Brown, just for being able to rock that, because of clearly they are capable and more than willing, more than worthy of rocking that number. We will move on to your boys. Let's get a little Ohio State action in, and it was a rough start, a weird start. They get pinned down near their own end zone, strip sack safety, and Miami of Ohio winds up being up 5-0 to start this thing off. But then Justin Fields, J.K. Dobbins just sort of took over.
You see J.K. Dobbins get going right here. And early in the season, he was looking for those home runs. Last week, started taking what the defense gave him, and the home runs came. Another nice job today, taking the hole, finding it, and then doing a great job at the second level. And here's Justin Fields. This is the element he brings to the offense. Strong arm. He's been poised. Ryan Day's done a great job of developing him and using one of his terrific weapons in Ben Victor right here, getting 2 feet down in the end zone for the touchdown.
Nearly a 67% completion percentage for Fields on the day. He throws for 4 scores, 223 yards through the air. Ohio State rolls 76-5. So those 5 points that I mentioned at the top of that highlight, that's all that Miami of Ohio did. And so as we look at this Ohio State team, what the run that they're putting together with regards to the Big Ten East and how far that they can go, this is another one of those teams that is inevitably going to be involved in that 4-team playoff conversation, no?
You know, I think it's kind of a 6-team race at this point.
Right.
You have the 2 usual suspects. You have Bama and Clemson at the top.
doubt.
You're going to throw a couple other SEC teams in there. Yep. Georgia and LSU are both looking really good.
Absolutely.
And then Oklahoma and Ohio State. Those teams right there, you look at the quarterback play that they all have, efficient quarterback play, really good defenses, athletes, they can run the ball. They're the ones that are kind of all on that different plateau, I think, if you look around the slate. So just kind of is going to figure out, you know, LSU, they play Bama. Georgia will probably ultimately play in Bama. Does Oklahoma trip up? Does Ohio State trip up? Clemson doesn't look like they will, but you know, those are the questions you're going to have to ask yourself. But it's been really impressive at Ohio State. They took a defense last year that struggled mightily. They've cleaned that up.
Yep.
And then the evolution of Justin Fields and what he's been able to do since he transferred in.
He hasn't had to make a difficult decision yet, and that's the biggest thing you see on tape. This guy's just bare booty open. He's able to hit them in stride, and he's being able to make those completions.
You or I could make some of those completions.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, you know, my shoulder hurt a little bit on occasion. In any case, Week 4, a lot of football left to be played, and as we kind of move through the slate, yeah, you heard Bobby muttered under his breath like, do we really need to do this? And yes, we do need to get to know you, Bobby Carpenter, because you had quite the career both at the collegiate and pro level. So we got to celebrate you, man. Tell us a little bit about what your favorite things to run down there in Columbus, Ohio were.
Is this what you want me to break down my own film now?
Listen,
Did some sacks.
why not?
Yeah, so I mean, my senior year I did a little edge rush stuff, getting after the passer. I mean, this is one of my favorite games, playing Vince Young in Texas. We unfortunately lost this game, but you're playing against the guy, for my money, was the best college football player that year in all of college football in 2005, ultimately won the national championship. But
yeah,
show a little versatility, a little interception there.
Yeah, man, you got the hands going. Look at, the mug shot. Look at that flow. I'm such a fan.
It's about 15 pounds ago, too. Tried to lighten up, trim the hair back, make my wife happy, make my mother happy.
I love it all. In any case, we talked a little bit about Jonathan Taylor earlier in the show. Heisman candidate. Your boy was able to get caught up with by Gary Striewski, hardest working man in our social team. Let's holler at him a little bit.
JT, first and foremost, because I'm pretty sure the entire state of Wisconsin was like holding their collective breaths. How was the cramping? Because I was in the student section, and every single one of them students were calling their parents, like, guys, how's Jonathan? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, you prepare for that stuff not to happen, but sometimes it just happens. So the biggest thing is make sure you take care of it. Went in, got IVs and all that, so I could, get back out there. But it sucks because you prepare for that not to happen, but sometimes you just sweat way too much, man.
Clearly, the wheels were still spinning and still working. 23 touches. You rushed for over 2 bills, another 2 touchdowns. Now you have 7 over the course of the last 3 games. You're obviously doing what you're doing, but I know you're going to gas up your offensive line because without those big uglies up front, it's not opening up those lanes. So this is your floor to show your offensive line some love.
I mean, those dudes, we've been working crazy, with each other, telling them, hey, I'm going to press your block, I'm going to draw those defenders in, so it gives me that cut, the ability to bounce outside, because now they're able to latch on to one another. So really just that communication, whatever, as long as we're on the same page, anything is possible.
That being said, anything possible. I know it's still very, very early, but you got to pay attention to what's going on social and what the talking heads are talking about. And if you continue with what you're doing, even just a fraction of this, people are already talking about Jonathan Taylor, Heisman, Jonathan Taylor, maybe a leading back right now. You got Travis Etienne, Treavor Hubbard, you. How do you sort of stay focused but acknowledge that noise?
One of the biggest things is there's an expectation now. I've been here for 3 years. There's an expectation of JT is going to come out and he's going to produce, and that's I'm big on consistency. So just knowing that I'm big on consistency and the fans are expecting week in and week out for me to come out and produce, it kind of gives me kind of a boost to say I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make sure that I produce and do everything I can to help my team win.
A little bit easier too. Offensively, you guys are doing what you're doing. Defensively, it took dang near 11 quarters for anybody to score on you. Michigan finally does in the third quarter. The first time a team has scored on you, period. Your defense is obviously helping your offense. So if you guys continue to do this, how dangerous is Wisconsin?
This team can be very dangerous. Like you said, it's the first time someone scored any points, field goal, touchdown, anything. So those guys, Chris told me they're going to clean some things up. So I'm expecting another shutout next week. I'm expecting a shutout.
Do you think opening up Big Ten play with a performance like this sort of puts the other team on notice? I mean, you're not going to sneak up on anybody with who you guys have, but that was such a dominant first half. You think that's going to open up some eyes?
I think it is, definitely, and I think it was big for us starting Big Ten play off like that. It's giving us a confidence boost, and now we're going to go into the next game knowing that, we got to come out and do the same thing every single week.
Football is life. Football is Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow into the end zone. Touchdown LSU. Just amazing to see Joe Burrow. He's waving goodbye to the crowd. Hey, yeah, I don't want to hear excuses. I just like to make moves and make improvements. I just like to break rules, maybe start some new trends. Live the life that I choose, cutting off the loose ends.
Running a little 3-man weave here on the College Football Show on Twitter, YouTube Live, and the ESPN app. Treavor Scales, Bobby Carpenter, and now college football expert Bill Connelly joining us here in the Studio B Lounge. Bill, we just saw a little montage of a couple Heisman candidates' potential. We were just talking to one before that montage. What are your thoughts on the race to this point? Who are you looking at as far as your top 3 or so when it comes to this race?
Well, the first 2 I think are pretty obvious at this exact moment, at least, with Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow. And I kind of grin every time I say that. We're talking about an LSU quarterback as a Heisman candidate right now, and it's pretty. It's unusual, at least. So, if he completes 80% of his passes the rest of the way, I'd say he has a pretty good shot. I'm really curious about DeAndre Swift tonight. I mean, we're talking about different running backs. We're talking about Jonathan Taylor, but he's got a really good chance in what is obviously a very marquee game with a very, very good offensive line in front of him to do some pretty big damage on prime time. So if he has a big game tonight, I think he inserts himself into that race as well.
Justin Fields, do you think there's any shot for a guy like him? I mean, first-year starter, huge numbers so far this year.
Yeah, I think his numbers are only pouring anyway if you compare them to Hurts or Burrow at this point. He might be catching up after today. So I mean, you've got them, you've got Tua, you've got Lawrence. This is still very wide open, obviously, and it should remain that way for quite a while because none of these guys are probably going to lose very much.
I think the other part, too, is storyline. That's always something that comes up with Heisman, and I think that Hurts pick that you made has a lot to do with that. For me, at least, the chip on his shoulder that he's carrying very clearly, and the way he's been balling along with it only helps his case when it comes to his run. When it comes to Jay, we could stick with Jay. Why not talk about him? Like, what exactly would he need in order? Is it as a playoff appearance necessary for him to lock up a trip to the New York City for the Heisman?
Well, I mean, that would probably, if they don't make it to the playoff, that probably means they lost a game they shouldn't have lost, and that's going to potentially backfire on him a little bit. But he's going to put up big stats. They're probably going to win the Big 12. At the very least, they're going to make the Big 12 title game. And so he should be right up in there. But it really is a situation where you've got so many guys that any loss is going to hurt you maybe doubly what it would in any other year.
Do you think this is kind of the flattish year where there could be maybe 5 guys that are all conceivably in the race here, week 10, 11, 12?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess at some point the field gets winnowed down a little bit, but we don't see any sign of that happening over the next month or so. So at the very least, we should be pretty wide open going into November, I would think.
When it comes to Joe Burrow and his candidacy at this point, how exactly has that offense opened up for him? It just feels nearly out of nowhere.
Yeah, like the end of last year, we got a hint. The end of last year, last 4 games or so, they started looking a little more vertical, and he looked really good doing it. And his receiving core obviously looks great going downfield really fast. And so I think that probably played into what Ed Orgeron wanted to do. He said he wanted to do this a couple of years ago, finally had the pieces to do it, open things up a little bit. I think the end of the last year really gave him confidence to really kind of go crazy this year and trust his instincts in that regard.
So then another former transfer. We talked about Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Former Alabama, Joe Burrow, former Ohio State. I mean, it's unbelievable kind of how this whole transition has happened.
Yeah, it's been such a weird year. So many transfers, either new transfers or transfers last year, playing so many different roles on big teams, other than Alabama and Clemson, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of unprecedented, and everybody found a pretty good home, it appears.
And when it comes to, and I'm actually just stop down real quick and be honest with y'all. I have been watching this game about the corner of my eye, and we all 3 of us have, frankly, Pitt and UCF, and it looks like it may have been won by Pitt for the moment being. There's 56 seconds left. Pitt scored a touchdown on the drive that they needed. They were down 6, 34-28. They score, get the extra point. They're up 35-34. UCF with the ball after a touchback at their own 25, driving down. We will keep you updated here on the College Football Show regarding that and everything else goings on. Now, back to the conversation that we were having regarding the Heisman hopefuls. Tua is a guy that continues to perform, but it's a lot of noon kickoffs may take away from his candidacy, right?
I think everybody knows Tua Tagovailoa pretty well. So, as long as you could really kind of look at Alabama LSU as not an elimination game, but pretty close to it. That's going to be kind of a 1 versus 1, like a Derrick Henry versus Leonard Fournette thing a few years ago. That could certainly play into, one of them taking a big step forward. But yeah, for now, he's just going to continue putting up ridiculous stats and
video game numbers.
We're going to watch for a quarter and then we're going to move on.
Is it tough for those guys, you mentioned Treavor Lawrence, Tua, that were on the scene last year, that they're almost competing against the ghosts from seasons past?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Tua is basically completely replicating what he did last year. Lawrence is a more interesting case because he wasn't what he was in the playoff all year. He just kind of grew slowly and then hit the end of the year playing his best ball, and we all kind of just assumed he was going to just do that all year now, and he hasn't. But again, as long as he does it in November, I don't think we'll remember what he did in September very much.
Recency bias is a very real thing, right? We were talking about that before the show, just with regards to a lot of different things in this world. But that's a larger discussion that we don't really have time for here. In any case, to keep you updated once again, looks like we had a big stop on the money down. 3rd down, Pitt gets a stop, just 10 seconds and counting left for UCF, down 1. Clock has stopped, so I will stop talking about that game. We can continue the conversation regarding the college football playoff. We saw a candidate for potentially a Heisman Trophy in Jonathan Taylor, but their team, Wisconsin, is really performing above a lot of people's standards, but some may have picked them. What are their chances in kind of inserting themselves into this college football playoff race?
Well, first of all, if we were only ranking teams based solely on how they looked this year, not any sort of preconceptions, Wisconsin would be the #1 team in the country right now. They've looked as good as anybody has, and they did it against lesser competition the first 2 weeks, but they just did it against Michigan. They looked exactly the same. And so, if they keep playing like that, obviously, their path is pretty clear. Beat Ohio State, probably beat Ohio State again a month later. I guess if you have to choose one, win the second one, but you'll be fine. Their path is there. We know they can do this because they almost did it 2 years ago, so they're absolutely a contender now.
Do you feel like this game today, Michigan, Wisconsin, says more about Wisconsin or more about Michigan?
I know we were trying to make all the storylines about Michigan, but I think it says a whole heck of a lot about Wisconsin. I mean, they were the team that, Michigan got a couple of bad breaks early, the early fumble and then the overturned call that probably shouldn't have been overturned, and they kind of folded offensively after that. Wisconsin just did not give them another opportunity to get back into the game until they were up huge and it was garbage time. So, I was really paying attention to Wisconsin with how good they looked the first 2 weeks, and they looked every bit as good today.
That time of possession clock looked like Wisconsin and then Wisconsin in a different color. Like, that's how bad it was as far as just how they were able to control that ball. And it looks like that Pitt game has just gone final. Yep. They get the win over UCF, maybe ending their hopes as far as the national conversation goes. But one conference, specifically the Pac-12, is one that a lot of people are curious about as far as their potential to insert themselves into the national conversation. Washington took care of business today. What are their odds? What's their path in order to get into this college football playoff?
Well, they just, win out and hope, basically. If you are a one-loss conference champion, you're going to have a very good shot. And for all we've talked about the Pac-12 kind of underachieving the last couple of years, their biggest issue has simply been they've had 2 lost champions. And so if you can just win out, that'll include a win over Oregon, it'll include a win over at Utah or something in the conference title game. That could be enough depending on what else happens. We're looking at a situation now where either Ohio State or Wisconsin could be undefeated, Oklahoma could be undefeated, Alabama could be undefeated, Clemson could be undefeated, and if that happens, they're out of luck. But usually somebody slips up. This is college football. And so if you're just waiting in line and hoping everybody else loses, a lot of times they will.
With USC beating BYU and as good as Fink looking, and maybe Clay Helton's they're starting to dial down the temperature. Right. Is there a shot for the Trojans to get back into this?
I can't imagine. So, among other things, they're apparently going to lose a new quarterback every game.
On that trajectory, yes, it's probably not great.
Yeah, you were talking about making throws. Like, they might give you that opportunity here in another month or two. But, I think they're still just too young. I think they're going to slip up a couple more times. They're clearly very high upside, but I would assume they slip up at some point.
Bill Connelly, college football expert, joining us here on the College Football Show on Twitter, YouTube Live, on the ESPN app. We appreciate you, big dog, but we're going to keep this thing moving. We are going for an hour straight from 7 to 8 p.m., getting you to take care of all things college football past, present, and future in Week 4. And I think we got a little something called What's Going On coming up now, right? There it is. There's my full screen animation. We're going to play a little musical chairs as this runs, as we update you on what exactly is going on right about now. And the things that are going on right now, Texas, Oklahoma State, squaring up the man, the myth, the legend that is Sam Ehlinger. He does a lot of things for Texas, Bobby, and he's going to have to do a lot in order to hold off the Cowpokes this evening, right?
He is, and he's not necessarily the most fluid thrower you're going to see the football, but he's a big physical guy. He gets it done in the running game. He has a lot of poise too, and you saw him even in the loss, against some very good teams. He's a guy that can still go out and play and get it done.
Something else that's going on, Florida State getting a big-time win at home over Louisville. It was tight, though. Cam Akers and Alex Hornibrook led a 10-play drive late in the fourth quarter to give the Noles the win over the Cards. And frankly, I think, we talked about this a little bit pre-show too, just the discussion surrounding coaches and their tenure, their job, candidacy. Willie Taggart's a guy that I openly root for, and I hope that he pulls it together. This is a win, a step in the right direction. They moved to 2-2, 1-1 in the ACC, but how much patience will you have as a Noles fan for that program to get back to at least prominence?
The good news is the ACC is not great, Trevor. So for Willie Taggart, you're probably not going to beat Clemson, but if you can win, find a way to get to maybe 8 or 9 wins, I think you're going to be okay. And the good news is you didn't lose today and then ultimately blame it on the fact that the weather was too hot and you weren't really feeling it like you did against Boise State from the Pacific Northwest that came to the southeast in the humid and the swamp, and somehow they were better equipped than you. I think he probably wishes he could probably take that back a little bit. But Florida State still has some talent, and they're in a conference that isn't very good. So I'm cheering for them. College football, Trevor, is better when Florida State is good.
No doubt. No doubt about that. As we continue to update you on what's going on, Miami and Central Michigan going off, and a little gun action up corner. We have a segment called Man Give Me That. This is low-key a candidate, not quite there. We'll explain that to everybody here in the audience later, but Miami goes up 14-7 with that score. They're now up 17-12 as it stands currently. And so, again, just a larger discussion about like programs that need to be good in order for college football to be exciting. Miami's a name that you throw out there occasionally. Florida State's another name that you throw out there. But we're starting to develop these powerhouses. Bill Connelly mentioned them. When it comes to Georgia, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Clemson, and Bama, just always going to be in this top-tier conversation. You worry about the middle class a little bit, but there is certainly a growth in the tier below that is Alabama and Clemson, right?
Maybe. I mean, I guess when you talk about Alabama, Clemson, then maybe that next level.
And that's what I was, yeah.
Oklahoma.
Correct.
Of Ohio State.
Georgia.
Of LSU,
yeah.
of Georgia. And you know what? We'll see tonight. We'll find out here this evening. I don't think Notre Dame is as far away from that group as people think. Like, the score may get a little bit out of hand tonight, but this Notre Dame team, they've really upped their talent. People continue to go back to that 2012 game against Bama. They're a much better team than that. They're more physical up front. They have better athletes on the outside. Brian Kelly's done a good job of recruiting and developing those guys. So I think that they're maybe sliding into that conversation a little bit. And I mean, ultimately, like, if you watch USC play Utah, like, they got dudes on the outside.
No doubt.
There's some studs out there. It's limiting the downside. We know how good those guys can be at their best. Can we make sure that the bad plays don't lose you games?
And that boils down to depth too, right? Like, it's a matter of being able to sustain top-level recruiting, and the more and more Brian Kelly gets top-level recruiting classes in there, it builds up that depth. The development that you mentioned will also help.
And I think Texas with Tom Herman.
Absolutely.
Tom Herman's a terrific coach. We just showed Sam Ellinger earlier. I mean, I think we saw that, they're a little closer maybe when they were playing LSU than what people believe. Like, piece away here, piece away there, maybe a little more depth in the back end, and build that offensive line. And plus the running back situation has just been slaughtered. So
disparaged,
yeah. And so if they can just continue to grow that, I think they're another team that you could really start to fill this out, and it won't just be a 2 and everyone else, or maybe a 5 or 6 team. Maybe you get a 7, 8, 9 team race, and you feel a little better about that.
Let's talk a little bit about that game that was actually distracting me the entire time we were trying to have a conversation with Bill Connelly. That would be the Pitt UCF game. We'll show you the finish that I kept alluding to. Pitt here working the gadget play to get the score.
I mean, you run the little reverse, the toss. Like, I just watched that, with the fake reverse with Carolina the other night with Christian McCaffrey. That didn't work. It works here, and you see Pickett, the quarterback, going down and getting it, tying the game. Meanwhile, Pitt, they'd missed 2 field goals of 40 and 41 yards. I'm sure they're celebrating. There might have been a little anxiety of Pat Narduzzi.
Listen.
He loved his kicker up earlier. He knew he would need him again at the end.
That is the exact point that I was going to make. His chest was tight, but he had to have the confidence in his kicker in order for his kicker to also have confidence in himself. And it certainly paid off. They get a 1-point win and a thriller late against UCF. So as we continue to talk through the college football show here on Twitter, YouTube Live, and the ESPN app, let's take a look at that slate that's coming up this evening. Clemson taking on Charlotte. All right, so that's on ACC Network. You can check that out. Texas and Oklahoma State over on ABC. They're getting ready to kick off there. And the big one, Georgia and Notre Dame. So we might as well have a little bit of discussion about that. Oh, you know what? We can just go ahead and kick it with one Maria Taylor. She's a superstar. She was on countdown to game day before, but she's made her way off and running. Let's check in with Maria Taylor, see where she's at for us.
What's up, guys? I just made it to Darrell K. Royal Stadium, and as you can see, the players have started to take the field and get ready for this matchup. Okay, here's what you need to know. The last 5 times Oklahoma State has rolled into Texas, they've rolled back out to Stillwater with the victory. So this is a team that's got some veterans on it, and everyone who's not a freshman knows what it's like to win here in Texas. I talked to Spencer Sanders, the quarterback for Oklahoma State, coming into this game. He said, this is what you come to Oklahoma State for. It's games like this. And, Coach Gundy said that he changed a couple of things about practices, focused a lot on discipline. He doesn't want his team to give up penalties or small mistakes that can keep them from winning games, and hoping that it pays off in a situation like this. As the Longhorns come out to start warming up. Hey guys, go Texas. And on the other side, remember, Oklahoma State has the leading rusher right now in the nation. They also have the leading receiver in Tylan Wallace. So either way, you know there's going to be a lot of stars flying for both of these teams. Offensive is at a high premium, obviously. Every single team knows how to score on this field, and it's going to be really quick, fast tempo, and it's going to be pretty good. I wish they would leave the music on, though. Enjoy the game.
A lot of Georgia fans have had this one marked on their schedule for a long time.
It's going to be a hostile environment. We got to go in there and just play our game and focus. It's Georgia week.
If you want to make a name, better stand and deliver. Oh, can't stop me now. Oh, can't stop me
Appreciate you, Maria Taylor. We'll make sure we get you right for that Oklahoma State-Texas game kicking off over on ABC. But we have a bigger discussion to have, and that surrounds Georgia and Notre Dame down in Athens, Georgia, for the first time in a long time as far as those two teams squaring off. And, Bobby, I think the matchup for me boils down to what will Notre Dame be able to do against the run for Georgia, because they have shown a propensity to really run it up on just about anybody they come across.
So they got a three-headed monster at running back. They've got three guys. Swift is going to get it done back there. They've got an offensive line that's returning 4 starters from last season. They were really good running the ball last year. Almost all those guys are back. They've been able to pound the rock. And so if you're Notre Dame, okay, what can you do to design it? Can you hold up with just your traditional run defense? Or the problem becomes you have to start creeping safeties down in and then start giving something up in coverage. And that's when Notre Dame, I think their secondary can maybe hold up against those athletes. And Jake Fromm doesn't have great numbers this year because he hasn't had to throw the football.
Yep.
And so when you look at this, okay, start running the ball. Notre Dame's not going to let them continue to do that. It really is, that's a losing recipe. You start creeping somebody up. Can Jake Fromm make the throws? Can the Notre Dame secondary hold up when there may be a guy light because they have to cheat up to stop the run?
And that's the thing about Jake Fromm. Brian Kelly even said it himself, just how efficient of a decision maker he's been throughout his entire career at Georgia. Right, he took the starting job as a freshman and has continued to flourish as far as being able to make the right decision. We saw a feature on Game Day earlier just about how he's able to pick up his guys and be just the vocal leader that he is for that locker room. He does a lot of different things for that team, and throwing the ball well is one of them that he just hasn't had to do. When it comes to Notre Dame's offense, with regards to what they've been able to capitalize on with Ian Book returning and being the guy unquestioned in his role, what are they going to have to do in order to keep up with the offense should Georgia be able to put some points up?
Well, starting out, I think Brian Kelly has finally found a quarterback that he seems to like.
Right.
I mean, Brian Kelly doesn't really like any of his starting quarterbacks, pulls them in and out of the game, and I've talked to a number of national guys like, is this the year that Brian Kelly starts the season with a quarterback and finishes with the same guy? Not due to injury, it was due to the fact that he wants to pull him in and out because the guy made 1 or 2 bad plays. He's very impatient. But Ian Book, he's going to make some mistakes, but what he does give you is that level of athleticism. He gives that level of leadership, so when a play breaks down, it's not a complete loss. He can find a way to improv, and we've seen him run, scramble, get some things done. I don't know if they're going to have enough up front to be able to give him the type of protection that he needs. They'll be able to run the ball some. Their offensive line's a lot better than it's been. Brian Kelly, like I said, has continued to bolster that because he realized after playing Bama in 2012, we can have all the skill guys we want, but we have to be able to compete in the trenches. I just think that eventually they'll be able to get worn down and that maybe they won't be on offense as long. The Georgia defense is always really good and littered with athletes.
No doubt about that. It's going to be quite the matchup on the interior for Notre Dame. They're going to have to muster up quite a bit in order to just kind of hold strong as best as they possibly can against the Georgia front on both sides of the ball that really has done a lot of damage to a lot of different teams. But we have our little side notes and our little points that we could give you ad nauseum when it comes to this Georgia and Notre Dame matchup. But we have my namesake, Treavor Mattis, joining us for today's lesson, brought to you by Dos Equis.
Georgia running back DeAndre Swift can run over you. He can run by you. But what's most fun is how he messes with your mind. Now, he's got the best run-blocking offensive line in college football, so a lot of plays look like this. Big hole, into the open, off to the races. But another look shows his deception. When he bursts through that hole, first he looks to the defensive right because that's where he's going. But he veers left before he goes there. Now, why does he do that? Because it freezes the feet of the safety. This guy's now out of the play. But because his eyes are to the right, well, he can see the nice block by the official as if he needs it, and he can negotiate all that traffic once he gets into that open space. Now, he makes you disbelieve your eyes. This defender breaks down because the body language of Swift looks like he's going inside around his blockers, but it's a trick. Yeah, if you think he's going inside, you can bet that he's not. Then when he turns on the jets, fastest guy with the best angle misses him behind because of his speed. Now, it's hard enough to face the physicality of the Georgia running attack, but when Swift adds his mind freak to the mix, well, he adds insult to the pain.
The description from what Treavor Matters there was excellent. I just love it. Here on the College Football Show, we are okay with our fandom. We celebrate our fandom, and one fan that has joined this show recently for the Irish is Mike Golic Jr. Gojo, what do you have on this game?
What's up, guys? Gojo here, live from lovely Lawrence, Kansas, getting ready to call West Virginia at Kansas. And I'm not going to lie, I watched College Game Day this morning. I didn't appreciate Maria and David Pollock ganging up on Notre Dame with everybody else in the known world today. You know what? It's enough. I'm sick of it. You guys can all keep picking with your heads if you want. I'm going to pick with my heart right now and be laughing on the other side here. Can't wait. Unreal atmosphere in Athens. Getting ready for the guys tonight. Let's go Irish.
He said he was going to be laughing. I pray that it's not out of just hysterics because of just how bad they got beat. I just would not want that for Gojo. I think it's just a matter of hoping that they just at least perform well enough to keep the tears from rolling down his face.
Perform well enough to keep the tears. That's a high bar. High bar, Trevor.
I don't want him to be upset. I just don't want him to be. I like Gojo. I don't want him to be. I'm a Georgia fan, so I'm giving him crap. Even though he's not here, it's okay. We had the discussion last week. It's fine. Could you pop in my ear one more time and tell me what we got next? Oh, we got the big time cat that went on the road and abandoned us this season. Jason Fitz, where are you at?
Okay, guys, I decided it's entirely too hot on the set of Game Day to give you a breakdown of this game. So I literally just crashed a tent. Y'all make some noise? That's what I did. This is what's amazing about it. These tents are tailgating Game Day. We're not even at the stadium. That's how hyped this crowd is. And so I'll give you a quick real thought on the game before we just make noise and yell and scream. The real thought on this game is, A, I don't think it's going to be a game. Georgia's going to kill them. Number two. Yeah.
You're right about that. I'll tell you what, them dogs win about 30.
You know
what? They weren't terrible.
They're not wrong. But here's one key to look for, and I'll tell you, I've talked to a lot of guys on line play. One of the keys to look for tonight is what does Notre Dame do on the defensive line? They got to stand up and they got to have movement, because if they stand up and have movement, they might be able to confuse the Georgia offensive line. If they just put their hand in the dirt to try to bowl them over, it won't happen. This is the only shot that Notre Dame has at all to try and disrupt. That's fair, Paul. The other thing to remember is that even if Ian Book is amazing, if Ian Book comes out tonight and he's incredible, it ain't going to be enough. Like I want to be helpful for this matchup and tell everybody it's going to be great. But the fact is, last I saw, Georgia's favored by 14. I don't think that's enough. This is going to be a slaughter, and it's going to be a reminder that Georgia football should be in the conversation as the #1 team in the country. It's true. And Notre Dame doesn't belong in the top 10. I just said it. I said it because Mike Golic Jr. is not around to kick my butt. Y'all excited? I'll tell you something. I know I'm new to game day. By the way, countdown to game day, 7:30 to 8 a.m. Eastern. You know where to find it, right here. I know I'm new to game day, but of the schools we've been to so far, there has not been an environment or an atmosphere or a charge from a crowd that touches this. This has been amazing. Georgia, how was that? Trevor, that's all I got. I'm telling you, Georgia's going to win by 1 million. Y'all have fun.
Athens is in a beautiful place. We appreciate you joining us there, Fitz. And now it's a little something called Holy Cow. We are a family program here on the College Football Show, so we avoid curse words, Bobby. We don't like to say holy bleep. We just say holy cow. It's all the plays.
I heard Treavor managed to say mind freak. I mean,
yeah.
Coming out of his mouth, it was unbelievable, though.
That was very off-brand for Treavor Mattis, but I'm a fan of it. First play for Holy Cow is something that is just something, it'll make you shake your head at the same time. Oh yeah, this is the Ole Miss attempt at an upset. I think in this situation for me, you gotta have 2 plays called, right? We talked about this here, Bobby. You got a running clock. You know you don't have any touchdown. You don't have any timeouts, excuse me. So 3rd and 3. pass complete, but it was short.
You got to call play.
You have to have something ready to go. You try the QB sneak, it gets absolutely thwarted, and then that's ball game. So, like, you set yourself up in that fashion, and it's certainly not built for success. I'm not entirely sure what we're doing on the sideline if we're anybody from the whole Ole Miss coaching staff. Like, I don't know how we go out there so ill-prepared.
No, you got to make sure you have that second play in. You're down. You can't spike it because it's fourth down, Trevor. That's the biggest problem. That's one of the main issues that they had right there.
No doubt about that. So a chance at an upset, they don't get it. And so for my score, we offer scores here on Holy Cow. 50. It's just bad.
Ooh.
Failing grade. If I could go to 0, I would. If I could just get that 0 moves, I would have. We like to be nice around here, evidently. Next play, Bobby, my hand the reins over.
All right,
to you.
yeah, so we're going to go to Army hurdling a defender for a first down. Army running back Connor Slopka hurdles a Morgan State defender, picks up a first down for Army. As you watch him there over the top, I mean, are we closing our eyes right here? what exactly?
I always do wonder that.
You see all the cadets, they're fired up. Look, he's running. Oh, over the top. Phenomenal.
Bobby,
but what are we doing?
I honestly have wondered that. When you get hurdled, is it just as simple as you close your eyes and you just didn't want to see what you were hitting before you kind of went in there?
See him, he's bracing for contact, and he whoosh, air, nothing.
Whiffing at nothing but air. That's got to be a terrible. That's got to be a terrible feeling. Just
got to go back with the cadets. Score on this. What am I thinking here? I'm going to give it a 74.
74. That's higher than I thought it was. Are you digging the defender? Is that taken away from the amount of moves that we're giving
the defender, you got to throw a little shade at him.
That's fair. No, that's more than fair. Okay, so now, next play. I was so incredibly excited the moment this happened when we were watching this game. LSU and Vanderbilt. Shout out to the big old lineman. The guard here, left guard.
Ooh. Oh.
So he gets one. But wait a minute.
More?
Yes, Adrian McGee gets two. Catches absolutely 2 bodies on one play. Has the nerve to celebrate after the first, but he's still going to go find some work and get a next man. I love every last bit of this. Like, I love that Joe Burrow had his school record day. That's all good and well. Shout out to him. But that left guard by the name of, because I want to make sure I do not mess this up. Adrian McGee. Shout out to you. You earned my first double move of the season. That is 100. That is 100 as far as the rating goes for this Holy Cow.
Google me.
Yes.
Google me. That's when he's yelling at you.
Good Lord. I love every last bit of that.
Man. You should. 2 pancakes or more. That's like an infomercial. But wait, there's more. I'm going to finish up with a terrible Rutgers interception. Pass intercepted by Mike Palmer, return for no game. Tries to pull the Derek Jeter jump.
Jump turn?
A jump toss. That's not a thing in football. Usually when you see it, it's only ending one way. Like, what do you think you're doing? You're not turning 2, right here, my man. You're not even looking. We're not even looking. We're throwing that thing up in the air. Just that's a hope and a prayer.
Just an absolute chucking up.
And what's amazing, Rutgers actually had a lead at one point in this game. Like, you had a chance to beat Boston College, a Power 5 non-conference opponent. And then you start throwing that stuff out there. My goodness, Chris, I just got to go crazy. I'm gonna give this thing on the Holy Cow meter an 83.
83?
83.
Is it just because you're mystified at how bad that was? It's just all kinds of awful.
Because the no-look pass for the quarterback only works if you're Pat Mahomes.
That's a perfect.
It only works for him. Nobody else does it work for.
That's exactly right. All right, so next up, we're going to kind of keep this thing moving through. As we mentioned, College Football Show here on Twitter, YouTube Live, and the ESPN app. Past, present, and future of all things college football. We're going to rewind a little bit. That Georgia-Notre Dame matchup that we talked about, we gave a platform for Mike Golic Jr. to talk his noise. We got to bring in somebody else on my side of this matchup, and that would be one Elle Duncan. As she's in the building, she's calm, cool, and collected, ready to go. Elle, how we feeling about this matchup?
I think it's adorable that you let Golic Jr. have a platform to prop up his team who hasn't won anything or been relevant in 30 years. The truth is, fellas, because I totally and completely agree that on paper, Georgia should dominate this matchup, right? Like, it's just not a good matchup for Notre Dame because their biggest weakness, which of course would be their run defense, is Georgia's biggest strength. But Treavor, as you know, is a battered and abused sports fan from Georgia. This is just all setting up to just be like a devastating heartbreak. And maybe it won't be. Maybe they'll win by 40. Or just maybe we'll have our soul crushed again. And I'm not really sure, as we are 10 minutes from kickoff, which one it's going to be.
Frankly, I always just walk into every game with a level of cynicism that is unmatched by any other sports.
Are you worried
Correct.
about this being Texas again last year?
Oh my God, that.
Oh, absolutely not.
I still
Bobby,
have nightmares of people.
No, Bobby, no. Let me stop you there, Bobby. Let me stop you there. Because when you lose the national championship the way that we lose, and then you follow it up the next year and you're about to finally beat Bama again, and then the reverse happens, and then Jalen Hurts comes in and beats you, losing to Texas in a bowl that doesn't matter doesn't actually matter. Like, that meant a lot for them. It didn't mean anything for us. So no. And even losing tonight to Notre Dame on the biggest stage in college football thus far this season would not still be as soul-crushing as what has happened to us for the last 2 years. So I guess at this point we're playing with house money.
Elle Duncan, joining the College Football Show. She is the person that has all the confidence that I wish I could have on a daily basis, frankly. Elle, I want to know, you make appearances on the Jumbotron in between the hedges quite a bit. What is the over-under that we're setting for your amount of appearances in Sanford Stadium tonight?
Me? Do I make my way on the stadium?
On the Jumbotron. You know, like you got the hype video and everything nowadays.
I did get a hype video. And let me tell you how important I am to UGA, being is that I never went there, and I couldn't even get in. I was on the Jumbotron for the Arkansas State game. So you can tell how important I am. I didn't make the Notre Dame game. I'll say over under at this point because they probably pulled out like the real celebrities, like the Maria Taylors and the David Pollacks and the Ernie Johnsons of the world. I'll say my over under. I'll set it at 2 and I'll take the under.
Hammering the under. We appreciate you joining us here, Elle. Always a good time chatting with you.
Go Dogs, Treavor.
Exactly,
Go
baby.
Dogs.
Hold it down.
Hold
it down. Shout out to Eva as well. Hope she's doing good. In any case, that's the College Football Show here on Twitter, YouTube Live, and the ESPN app. Rolls on. We have another little something that we like to do called bruh around here. Very simple concept. You see a play on the screen in any given game. It makes you say bruh. It qualifies for this segment. And we will get right into it. It begins with Rutgers, what we actually finished with. So after a touchdown to tie the game, shout out Mike. My Eddie, with the right cross on his own quarterback. You lift him up, you do the whole lift celebration as standard, and I understand it, like you typically tap your boy's helmet. By the way, I'm not typically a fan of, but after I've done hit my head several times in a game, like don't hit my head after that. And also don't give me a right hook from Kingdom Come. That also doesn't help the effort.
This is the team that hasn't probably had a lot to celebrate.
For sure,
so
that's fair.
You haven't practiced the celebrations very much. So that's the problem. And so you're not used to the force. You're bringing a little too much pain right there to your QB. I'm surprised you didn't put him in the concussion protocol.
Honestly, he should have taken a trip to the tent after that. Also, needs to take a trip to the tent the entire Tennessee season. And we're going to move on with this one. I don't think that's how a phone works, player. And I understand that you might be from a different generation that may not have used that type of phone before. But I guarantee you that's not how it's done.
I'm not even sure what to say about that. Like, those guys probably look at that thing like, wait, what? Is there a speaker? What are these buttons on the front? And why are they raised out? Like, and why does this thing weigh so much? And lastly, why do I need to have it charged all the time?
What is this
cord?
cord?
Is the battery broke? Like, I can't unplug this. It doesn't work anymore.
It's just a bad look overall. The entire shit. They just need to go ahead, reset a little bit, gather themselves, and kind of move forward from what's going on. We're going to lay out for this next one because it just requires a lot of time just to digest what exactly is going on for this next bruh moment.
This is Sparta!
So Northwestern lost to start.
By a pretty good margin.
There's a lot there, and I really want to try to take it easy because Max, our producer extraordinaire, who also works on this show, graduate from there. Bad look, man. It's just not good. I don't have much to say on that. That's just a bruh moment. I don't know. You have anything else?
I'm going to give it an A on production quality.
Okay, that's fair.
The production value I thought was really good.
Yes.
Some elements. They got the slow motion, the dramatic music over the top. They got the one-shot down barrel. I mean, I think the guy nailed it. The problem is the application was all wrong. Yeah. That's where I think we're going to have some issues, is the fact that they went out there today, and I don't think Michigan State, as we saw last week, is confusing anybody with like the 99 2000 Rams offensively, and then you're going to give up a boatload of points to them. That is not a good look for your Wildcats.
Yeah, not exactly the greatest show on turf. Just for clarification for those out there that may be a little younger for that 99 2000 reference. You know what? We actually do a little something else called Man, Give Me That. But our boy Gary Striewski, you saw him on the road. But can you help us out, Gary? I know you'd like to get a part of this.
Now, Trev, did you really think you were going to be able to get rid of me? Just because I'm on site here in Madison, by the way, Camp Randall, an excellent venue. Does not mean I can't get a little bit of juice with, man, give me that. But basically, this is your responsibility. The best catches that we've seen up until today's game day, Thursday, Friday, could be today. The best catches, offense, defense. If you see it, show me. Man, give me that. I'll be back next week, hopefully. They're yelling at me. I better get off the field now.
Looking forward to it, big dog. Let's get right to these plays. We got about 4 minutes left on this here college football show, so we got a lot to get in. We begin with LSU true freshman deep defensive back Derek Stingley with the interception.
Damn. You got his helmet ripped off. They ripped it. Give me that. You give me my helmet. It doesn't matter. I'm taking the football right here. LSU in the route today, doing it on offense, and here we see doing it on defense. This guy is an elite player. I believe, is he only a freshman?
True freshman.
Ryan Clark was telling me about this guy. He is going to be one of the great ones.
Ran the route for that receiver. We can keep pushing and keep it moving into another. Give me that moment. It comes from Florida. And guess what? It's another defensive player. This one, Amari Burney. Tip drill.
That's why you run to the football right there. Your guy's going to dislodge the ball for you. You want to be scrambling 11 hats to the ball. Boom, it's popping up. Give me that. Right out of the air with the full layout, T.
I love it all. I love it, every last bit of it, man. Like, this is just, we're piling on Tennessee, and I don't want them to feel as if we're just doing this for the sake of doing it. Even though I am a Georgia fan, I love to see it. I understand that y'all might be feeling a certain type of way, but just understand this is an unbiased segment.
Here, let me get a call on the phone over there in Tennessee. See what's going on.
Next, give me that moment. Washington. Jacob Eason. This one kind of hurts because, like I mentioned, I'm a Georgia fan, so he's out here balling back in his home state, and the toe tap extra effort here is incredible.
I remember watching this thinking, how the heck did the receiver get 10 yards behind the defensive back in the end zone? Great ball by Eason. You can't be that upset. You've got Eason starting at Washington. They're ranked. You've got Fields starting at Ohio State. They look great. But you still got your guy, Jake Fromm, doing it. If Eason's going to drop a dime like that, give me that thing out of the air for the TD, looking like Santonio Holmes in the Super Bowl.
Look at that comparison. Yes, Richard Newsom did get 2 of those toes down. That is NFL ready for you. And the last one, you mentioned Justin Fields. Let's show a little love to him and his receiver, Benjamin Victor. A 30-yard strike. And, yeah, that's give me that worthy. Goes up and over. Gets one. Does it get 2 down? Oh, wait.
He got that second one down late, but give me that. Fields right over the top to his guy, Ben Victor, the senior, tall, lanky. Great job. Give me that thing. Give me 76 points on the board as well.
Show you right. Bobby Carpenter rolling through that segment. Gary, watch out for your job. Just put that out there. I don't mean anything by it, but just make sure you own it when you come back into town here in Bristol. We appreciate you joining us here on the College Football Show. Well, before we go, we got a little prediction before we jet off of here. Texas and Oklahoma State just getting started. Oklahoma State's actually up 3-0. Do you see the Texas Longhorns pulling this thing off?
I like the Cowboys, man. It's tough to go against the mullet. You know, he has owned.
Mr. Gundy, yes, sir.
He has owned Texas.
Without
the last
question.
couple of years, they've been great in Austin. I cannot go against them.
How do you feel about Georgia and Notre Dame?
I think Georgia pulls this thing out. I don't know if it gets all the way to 14. I think Georgia, it's closer than it feels. I can see it getting stretched at the end, but but the game won't be indicative of a blowout.
No doubt. I mean, as a cynic, I want to say that they might mess around and lose this game, but frankly, I do think that what they take care of up front on both sides of the ball really does carry them through this win. I don't see them covering either. Like they mentioned, the spread right around 14 or so. They're probably not going to cover that. And as far as this Mike Gundy Bowl that he's playing against in Darren K. Royal Stadium down there in Austin, Texas, I like the upset pick too. Why not? I think as far as what they do dynamically, as far as an offense goes, they have the leading rusher in the nation. Also have the leading receiver, as Maria Taylor mentioned earlier. They'll do their thing. We appreciate you joining us here on YouTube Live, Twitter, and the ESPN app. Until week 5, we'll holla at y'all. Be easy.